Welcome to 10 Questions. Profiles from a Distance. A Dirtbag NPR production. Question number 1.
Introduce yourself like you're writing a Tinder bio. All the pertinent information, a few quirks.
My name is Jake Flores, and I'm looking for a new best friend. Just kidding. I was just thinking the other day about how when people are dating someone, they say, "This is my best friend," and I thought it would be funny if you were on a dating app and you sounded like pissed off. Like, I'm new best friend applications. Hi, my name's Jake. I'm a stand-up comedian. I also host a podcast about radical left politics, and another one about art and pop culture and shit. It's all the same stuff. Let's see. I'm 6'1", but I slouch, if that's important. I have 2 cats with my girlfriend. I guess this doesn't work for the Tinder bio thing anymore. Well, maybe it does. Maybe I'm one of those guys. Me and my girlfriend are looking for a special someone to hang out with us and our cats. And I am from Texas, so I have a very high standard for barbecue and Mexican food. And I'm also half Mexican, if that matters to you, if you're one of those fucking people. All right, let's get into it.
A slouchy 6'1". We're a couple looking to add a third. Must enjoy cats and barbecue. The only way that I could see it being advantageous to add a third to a couple would be if that person was a really good mediator. Assuming that you're adding the third person later to the original 2, then argues about what to do for dinner and whose family to visit on holidays could be decided by a third party. And that might actually be a highly advantageous application of polygamy, polyamory. All these terms confuse me. I respect it, and I respect barbecue. Texas? Come on. Wait a second. How do they feel about Sweet Baby Ray's in Texas? Is that novice? Is that introduction stuff? Do you have to make it at home for it to be a good barbecue sauce? Is that the mentality? Is it anti-corporate? Is Sweet Baby Ray the man? Fuck the man? Fuck Sweet Baby Ray, I suppose?
Question number 2.
What's the first experience as a child that you truly remember? Whether it's a birthday party or mowing the lawn, something like that.
Okay, I've thought about this a lot, and I think my first conscious memory is trying to put together the board for the board game Mousetrap, which is a Rube Goldberg machine for children. And I remember not understanding what I think I understand now, which is that's not okay. That's fucked up that you would impose upon a child that it is perfectly normal for them to be able to set up an entire Rube Goldberg machine involving a little diver guy and shit that falls into a bucket. That's insane. So I remember being very frustrated with not being able to get like the rubber band around the part that the diver guy springboard thing that he stands on. That's, I guess, you know what? Maybe that is the telling thing about a person, that their first memory is being pissed off or frustrated. That ain't good. The other one I remember is it being Halloween and me being dressed as a dinosaur but being very sad. Oh.
When I was little, I bought a model of a space shuttle. And at the store, the man behind the counter was like, "That's very advanced. You're going to need," and I said, little kid hubris, I'm like, "Don't worry, buddy. I got it. I've been saving my allowance." It was so advanced that you needed to cut some pieces and fabricate them yourself out of a piece of balsa wood, which was provided. And I suppose at some point I just started gluing random things together. I was like, well, they've got it wrong. I'll figure it out. And that testament to ADD is probably still in my parents' attic. I picture you as a kid in a dinosaur costume, reluctantly saying trick or treat. Some boomer lady being like, "Oh, make a dinosaur noise." And you just, "Rah. Can I have the candy, please?" Dude, something about being sad in a Halloween costume, or you know what, sad in any costume, it's hysterical.
Question number 3.
Do you have a hobby you always wanted to pursue that you never followed through on?
That always sits in the back of your mind.
Not exactly. I mean, I sort of wanted to learn to play the guitar and make music when I was younger, but then I started doing stand-up instead because I wasn't good at it and I didn't have any of the equipment you need. So I spent a long time doing stand-up and sort of thinking of myself as, oh, that's my guitar, huh? It's my mouth that I make jokes with. But this doesn't really quite work for this question because I did recently get a guitar and start trying to learn to play it again. Jury's out. I might be completely musically illiterate, but it's kind of a funny story though, because what's happening with it is I play it in my room and I play it on headphones, and I live in this loft and it's a weird space, and so there's a wall, and then on the other side of the wall there's like another apartment where I don't know who those people are that live over there, but there's a guy who is directly on the other side of the wall as me, and he also has a guitar, and he plays fucking Wagon Wheel, that country song, all day, and I hate him, but I love that song. I just wish he would stop playing it, or I could control when he plays it. So in getting back into my lost hobby, I have sort of found myself in this like duel with my next door neighbor, where he like sort of screams at the top of his lungs and plays gutter country. And I'm trying to get good enough at the guitar to where I can beat him, or I can find something equally as annoying, or I can get really good at the song Wagon Wheel, and then when he starts playing it, I'm gonna start playing it also to illustrate how thin our walls are, because right now I'm playing with headphones on because I'm self-conscious, but when I get good I think I'm gonna actually kick on the amp, aim it at his apartment, and then I'll play a duet with him to blow his mind. I'm very angry about this.
I remember some interview where comedians in general want to be rock stars, and rock stars kind of imagine that life would be better if they were a comedian. Maybe you could just meet in the middle and tie a bunch of scarves to your microphone stand like Steven Tyler. I mean, comedy might be better if we dressed better. Comedy might be better if not the suit and tie of the 80s. You know, if there was more Russell Brands, I suppose. If it was a more fashion-forward art form, less sweatpants, more leather. Is this Wagon Wheel? Turn it up. His hoodie's back, and that's what's up. Quoting Bird Cloud. I think you're missing an opportunity to just start a band. I think you should aim your amplifier at the wall and play the first part of Dueling Banjos relentlessly until you hear that second part back. I mean, that guy over there, he could be your best friend. You don't even know.
Question number 4.
What's something you believe to be true that most people think is false?
Short answer, obvious answer is that communism is good, and, you know, all the shit that we have now is bad, but that's no fun. If you want to hear about that, you should listen to my podcast. Shameless plug. You know what? Actually, there's a thing that I think is true that I think everyone else thinks is false, which is that I think that the second version of the punk band, the Misfits, are good. The Michael Graves one with the song Saturday Night and all the spooky songs about Halloween monsters. And I say that because with punk music, there's this thing where you're supposed to, live and die and fight each other by these arguments over who's a better frontman from these bands like Black Flag and the Misfits and stuff like that. But no one in it, especially the Misfits, none of these people are good people. So the band doesn't hold up at all. Obviously, the late 70s Danzig Misfits are the best Misfits, and they created all these iconic songs that have a little bit more depth and are scarier and more authentic. But the second band, the bastardization, reanimation of the Misfits corpse, where they took all the aesthetic and then some other guy sang, it's really good music. It's just a different band. People have a really hard time, I think, with the idea that you can think of it as like an entirely different product and just appreciate it for what it is. Whenever I feel like people listen to that band, the second Misfits, they have this thing where they're like always thinking of it in context, like in comparison with the other one. Like, I guess like this also happened with like Van Halen or some shit. I'm trying to think of a more pedestrian version of this, but this doesn't often happen with bands where they switch singers. People get really pissed off about it. But I think that's that's silly. Like, it's just a different band. Who gives a shit?
I remember growing up, they would switch out characters on TV shows and not even do a transition episode. I think it happened on Roseanne. I think it happened on Married with Children. Probably some other shows I don't remember. I'm sure it's happened in soap operas, but I don't follow that. Socialist. I don't care. The next version of the Misfits should have Bernie Sanders as the lead singer, and I'm sticking by that.
Question number 5.
How much time would you have to spend alone before the freedom of it wore off and you became bored or depressed?
I think I have a higher threshold for this one than other people, as has been tested out in the quarantine. I don't know why. I know that you're, like, supposedly it makes you go crazy to be alone. They put people in solitary confinement in prison, and they like lose their minds and scratch at the walls and things like that. But I think that if I was in prison and they tried to do that to me, the scientists would be like looking in through the window and then taking notes on their little notepad and scratching their heads and looking at each other and going like, he just keeps going. Nothing works on this guy. Because I fucking love hanging out at home. I think it's probably because I toured and worked too much for my entire life. And I'm like having a good time catching up on all of the things, the prestige TV shows and video games and stuff, books. I mean, goddamn. Like, I don't understand. I understand why people read books in prison. I don't understand why people don't read books outside of prison, because if you're ever bored, it takes a long fucking time to read like a 900-page book. So there you go. You're occupied for fucking days, I guess what I'm saying is I could probably do like 5 years before I really lost my mind. I think as soon as I saw like a gray hair sprout from my head or something, I'd probably go like, all right, I need to go to the park. I don't know.
I'm picturing the TV show Oz. You get thrown in the hole. They come back 3 weeks later to check on you to see how punished you've become. And they look in and you're just singing Wagon Wheel to yourself very contently. It's plausible. As far as books, I used to read so many books. I don't know why I don't read books anymore. There's so much media to take in these days, and that probably has something to do with it. I mean, how many base hours of your favorite podcasts occupy, 1 week, right? And then moving on from that, books are bulky. I do guarantee that book sales have gone up so that pundits have something to have in the background of other Zoom calls. Moving on.
Question number 6.
What's a favorite joke of yours or someone else's?
My favorite street joke of all time is probably, I don't know about of all time, but this is one that's ringing around in my head right now. There's a guy who walks into a bar, and there's another guy sitting at the bar, and he looks depressed. The guy sitting at the bar has a big orange circle for a head, and he's holding it in his hand, and he's, just sort of like nursing a whiskey. So the first guy walks up to him and he goes, "Hey, what's wrong, pal?" The orange head guy goes, "Well, it's a funny story, actually. I found a magic lamp." You know how people in jokes always find magic lamps. He goes, yeah, and a genie came out of it, and he said he'd grant me 3 wishes. And so the guy interrupts him. He goes, well, what'd you wish for? Orange head guy goes, well, first thing I did is I wished for $1 million. And, you would think that would make your life great, right? But the thing is, as soon as I had $1 million, all my friends started hitting me up for money. And I started to feel cheap and inauthentic and, suddenly felt so alienated from my fellow man, started to resent everyone around me, and material things didn't make me happy. Turns out the secret to happiness was not, having $1 million, I guess. It made my life hell. So the second thing that I wish for is I just wish to undo the first wish, just take the $1 million away. And then the guy goes, what's the third wish? What'd you wish for after that? And the guy goes, I wish for a big orange circle for a head.
That sounds like a proto Norm Macdonald joke. Like he was fathoming that when he was like 17, and then it slowly evolved from his mouth to the street over the years. I always loved a skeleton walks into the bar and orders a beer and a mop. There's something about that anti-humor, if that's what it is, the simplicity, the build-up to the nothing. Leaving people wanting more or leaving people mad at you, I think, are both good things to bring to the stage. I also probably was too influenced by Gigi Allen, so maybe the having people mad at you needs to be rethought.
Question number 7.
Make up something that sounds like a racial slur, then use it in a sentence. For example, he's a real soup sipper, if you know what I mean.
Dude, I do this all the time. Everything sounds like this. One time I was hanging out with my friend Natalie, and her mom was just talking about how she was born. She's like, Natalie here was born in June. She's a June baby. And then I just told her, like, man, you can't say that loud around here. It sounds like, it's for sure sounds like something people down in Texas, where I'm from, would, old-timey fashioned call someone. I'm struggling to think of a new one because for some reason these things always occur to me organically, like when someone just says something and then I go, that's sounds like it could be a slur. What about like us? This place is full of lampshades. You know what I'm saying? Because that like kind of evokes like looking like something. Like a bunch of lampshades in here. I don't know.
June baby is dead on accurate as far as what I'm talking about. These commonplace combination of words that sound kind of evil. Blanket salesman. I don't know what it is, but I don't want to meet one. Lampshades. Lampshade sounds like it dims the light. So perhaps a lampshade is like maybe an anti-intellectual. I was about to make a real good point, and then this lampshade comes in and starts shouting over me. Something like that.
Question number 8.
What's a strange fact about you? I didn't eat a hot dog till I was 37 years old.
Strange fact about me, I have synesthesia, which is this condition where it's not a condition. It's like there's nothing wrong with you. It's just like being like a certain type of person where you associate colors with like sounds and stuff like that. So like musicians always talk about having it because I think it makes them sound like really interesting, but it's like you don't literally see anything. It's just a kind of vague feeling you have in your brain. It's also like I don't have it very hard. I watched a documentary about it one time, and there's a guy who has synesthesia to such a degree that he can like read, he can count levels of pi beyond like what science has been capable of because he imagines it all in his mind. But to me, it just means that like the month of January feels very green to me, and the month of February feels very pink, and it's probably because I had a calendar growing up with those colors on them. Yeah, pretty cool though, huh?
Synesthesia sounds like a club where vampires hang out in an 80s movie. The first question that comes to mind, is there any substances that amplify this for you? Like a strain of weed makes April so chartreuse. It is pretty interesting.
Question number 9.
What's your favorite piece of art? Whether it's an album, movie, painting or book?
Probably the song Wagon Wheel that a good friend of mine plays all the time. No, real talk. I don't know. It's just like an unoriginal answer. Like, I feel like this is a lot of people's thing, but probably The Watchmen. Like, if I was like dating somebody and I was like, you want to know what my thing that I'm really interested in is? The graphic novel, The Watchmen, because, and I think that it's still something that deserves to be talked about because I don't think most people understand this book that's wildly popular. Alan Moore, the guy who wrote it, is a genius, but he's a lunatic, like swamp man, anarchist, mystic type. And so he wrote this book about superheroes, like a graphic novel, technically, if you're not familiar. And it often sort of is just treated as like a comic book, but it's very anti that, first of all. It's one of those weird things. And then second of all the subtext is about like mid 19th century, weird British poetry and politics and stuff. And it's all very cool and metaphorical, and the characters that people like are not actually good, and the ones that people don't like are good. But you have to read a bunch of weird political economy and theory and shit to understand that shit. Anyway, Adrian Veidt did nothing wrong.
I had to phone a friend to give meaningful commentary on this. I have never read The Watchmen. I have not seen The Watchmen. I was informed not to watch the movie because it is very disappointing. I got heavily invested in Stephen King's The Dark Tower series, and I have been perpetually afraid of taking on another piece of art in that genre and being disappointed. I learned that Alan Moore was loopholed into never getting the rights to his intellectual property back due to the constant publication of his series, and now refuses to work with DC? Let's say it's DC. Adrian Veidt did nothing wrong. I had to have that explained to me also, and so what we're talking about is a small sacrifice for the eventual greater good, and that's a very difficult concept. It made me think about that plane over Shanksville, whether or not that was, brought down for a supposed greater good. We'll never know. Or maybe we do know.
Question 10.
Final question.
Where do you want to be in 5 years?
Well, I mean, I've lived in this fucking like factory loft thing for a long time in New York, but the entire time I've lived in it, I've been fighting like the city and my landlord and shit in order to sort of get it legalized. And we did it. My building did it. And so now what I have is a pretty sweet rent control situation on the place for the next like 7 years. So in 5 years, I would like to still be in my home and just saving money up to go, use the situation to then maybe move on to the next part of my life, which after that, I don't know. Maybe I'll leave the city. Maybe another fucking pandemic will happen. Who knows? Maybe LA, huh? But a big part of me, honestly, wants to disappear. Just go out to fucking Reno or something. I don't know.
Living in a renovated factory. Squatting, perhaps? Like some sort of combination of Andy Warhol and leftover crack. Sounds like a really fun vibe. I doubt it plays out that cool in person, though. As far as disappearing, I mean, Howard Hughes went out to, I believe, Prim, Nevada, and locked himself in a hotel suite and ate ice cream for like a year. Doesn't that sound nice? Escape from reality, eat ice cream. That was Jake Flores, host of Pod Damn America, at Feral Jokes on Twitter, and I believe across most social media platforms.
This has been a Dirtbag NPR production. Please link, subscribe, and share.